They arrived on a hot Tuesday like a bad weather front. Two hulking men in cheap black jackets carrying a letter stamped with the HOA seal and a list of ultimatums that smelled more of muscle than law. At first I tried to be reasonable. I offered to meet, to negotiate setbacks and fence lines, to plant privacy hedges and agree on a schedule for noisy repairs. They smiled, took pictures of my heirloom tomatoes and my beehives, and left with another threat. The board had authorized necessary measures. I could have answered with threats of my own, could have threatened their cars or windows, but that is not the way I was raised, and it is not how a farm survives. So I set a legal trap, one that relied not on violence but on patience, paperwork, and the one thing thugs and petty bureaucrats fear: proof. Slowly, meticulously, I documented every interaction, timestamps on phone calls, copies of the threatening letter, neighbor affidavits about the noise and the landscaping they themselves admitted approving, and photographs of the board members' own violations posted on public filings. I hired a small-town attorney who charged less than the HOA's purse but cared more about principle than profit. She taught me the language of restraining notices and temporary injunctions and how to expose procedural holes that could halt demolition. Next, I turned the soil into a stage. I invited reporters and civic leaders to the farm, framed my bees and barns as community assets, and handed out jars of honey with notes about pollinators, property rights, and due process. The local paper ran a measured piece about overreach. The county planner pulled the HOA's demolition claim for review. A sympathetic council member mentioned the case in a meeting about homeowners associations and transparency. When the HOA tried again, armed with paperwork and muscle, they found themselves stopped at a legal blockade, a temporary injunction that froze any action until a court hearing, and public scrutiny that made any necessary measures look reckless. The thugs were humiliated, their bully tactics catalogued in court exhibits. The board voted to mediate, not demolish. In the end, my farm stood where it always had, not because I matched force with force, but because I matched threats with evidence, fury with patience, and fear with community. It was a quiet victory, no shattered windows, no blood, only the long, satisfying sound of a board forced to read its own rules under the afternoon sun. Neighbors who once whispered in alleyways now brought daily pies and legal statements, and children who had learned to fear the big trucks now ran among the sunflowers, their laughter a small, stubborn rebuke to intimidation.